All right, we're recording. Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, and this is the weekly meeting of Kubernetes SIG Docs. Today is the fourth Tuesday, so we are meeting at 6 p.m. Pacific time in order to make it easier for folks in the Asia Pacific region to attend. So it's always nice to see Sioko-san. And Sujay Pillai, are you joining us from somewhere in the absolutely huge region of Asia?
Yes, I'm from currently based out of Malaysia, Penang. So Penang is a mix of mainland and a small island, which is on the north side of Malaysia, I would say. So 5 hours from the capital state of Kuala Lumpur.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're here.
Yep. I just once joined during your, my night time previously. That's where, but it was kind of very late for me. So
cool. Well, that's good that we started with new contributors. Sujay, are you, is Kubernetes part of your day job, or are you just here because you love the community? Tell us more
it's
about
because of the community. Not much during my day. Job work, I do get work with Kubernetes, but it's mostly because of the community. So I run the Kubernetes Penang meetup group along with the doctor also. So that's one of the main reasons. Last week we had a Kubernetes meetup session along with one community member from India, Piyush. So we had, the community is not big as compared to other community that I have seen. So I got an attendance of maximum 20 people.
Excellent. Well, welcome.
Yep. Thanks.
So let's do updates and reminders. So this week's PR Wrangler, it was scheduled to be Barney, aka Mako's Cafe, but I have not heard I haven't heard from Barney or seen any activity from him for a while. So I can sort of wrangle this week. And I spent yesterday wrangling a fair number. I can't give it the full attention that it deserves, but I can sort of wrangle this week. But it would be a good idea to reach out to Barney and see what his intentions are about continuing as an approver. If he wants to stay, great. If not, let's make sure that we clean up the owner's files. So I noticed that Savita is scheduled to be the PR Wrangler for the week of August 30th. Asking someone to wrangle PRs the week after a release just seems cruel. So I wonder if, Celeste, you want to wrangle?
I'll wrangle, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. I'm looking ahead, I see in a month, we have Vineeth also is scheduled, and it's been a long time since I have seen activity from Vineeth, so it would be good to reach out to him proactively. I would like to not be the one to reach out this time. If someone wants to reach out to Barney and just say hello and see what's up with him, that would be awesome.
Yep, I'm happy to take that on. I can reach out to Barney and Vineeth, not a problem.
Awesome, thank you, Jen. All right. Let's move on to the agenda. So the release is upon us. The repo is frozen. So right now, no merges in the repository at all. And thankfully, Prow now has functionality that makes that automatic. So don't be surprised or alarmed if you're seeing things get approved and not merge. That's normal. we freeze the repo to make sure that no last minute breaking changes are introduced, and that we can make a clean tag at the end of the current release and the start of the next. So as soon as we have the tags in place and the official release goes out the door, we will thaw the repo, and a whole cascade of PRs will merge all at once. That is a load-bearing tide blocker in that issue. So anything else to note about the release in terms of like details and how it goes?
Nothing that I can think of. This is the first time that we're testing not having the release branch until later in the release cycle, but it's a little different for this time around because we created the release branch once, like early on, and then created everything and then deleted it. And so we recreated it and everything looked good as far as just for context and awareness. When I'm talking about the release branch, it's the branch where 118 is in master now, where 118 goes to be after we do the release for 119. But so the branch itself was created early on, configured, we deleted it, we recreated it later, all the configuration is the same, but just be aware things might be a little strange from that perspective. And as well as for 120, also it's going to be a little strange, just new processes.
Sure. It seems though, so just to recap really quickly, you're talking specifically about the named branch release -1.18.
Correct.
We have waited until much later in the cycle. Like we did it we created it first. We said, wait, this is a terrible idea. We've had problems when we do it this way. We deleted it, and so has the release -1.18 branch been created again?
Yeah, it's been created and validated that the current open PRs against it are reflected. You can go to, I think it's v118.kubernetes.io, or it might be .docs, kubernetes.io, but the URL does work, it's functioning. It just might be more strange for 120 than it is for 119.
Okay. And just to double check, do you know if release -1.18 is current to master?
Yep, as far as I know,
Sweet.
it's it's looking all right.
Okay, awesome. Cool, thank you. It seems like we've had a lot fewer headaches of mispointed PRs this time around as a result of changing how we do that. So yeah, a nice process improvement. Blog issues, anything going on with the blog? Looks good. All right, issues and PRs. So as I was wrangling PRs, I was looking through the backlog of things that we have open, and there were some specific PRs that have been hanging out for a while, and I wanted to bring them up in community and like work our way through them. So let's start with PR for client libraries, 21509. This is Taylor's PR, aka Only Dole. Taylor is the release lead for 1.19, so I expect not to hear or see from him for like 2 weeks, like all of this week, and then next week to like not do anything and just remember how to be human. Is there, I guess I would ask folks to take a look at this, and if there's anything else that we need to do here, then let's outline that clearly. But this is starting to become a PR with many dependencies stacking up behind it. So I don't want to delay this too much longer if we can. Any thoughts about like what to do with this? I think Tim's feedback here is really solid about how to label and handle client libraries, but I think Celeste, your third-party content warning is also going to play into this. So any thoughts here about how to proceed with this?
It seems like merging the third-party content warning and then applying it is a good place to start. Are we still deleting this table of community maintained client libraries under the third-party content thing? Because I think that's where this got roadblocked before. I think we've talked about this before.
And I think if I read Tim's feedback correctly, Tim's proposal is to keep it and slap a giant warning label on it saying, we don't maintain this. We're not directly responsible for this content. Use at your own peril. Am I reading that feedback correctly?
You have a question for me?
Sure, if you have thoughts, Chiming, I'd love to hear them.
I would prefer we keep this simple table because it's not a lot of content to maintain. It's anyway, it's a community work. If someone happen to find that one of the libraries has gone dead, unmaintained, there could be a proposal to delete it, remove it. I totally agree that we won't maintain large paragraphs of these kind of libraries. We cannot afford that, but providing a link for the readers is always a good thing. That's just my opinion.
Other thoughts?
Here's a question. Do you need a client library to implement a Kubernetes thing? Is that arguably a requirement or not?
It depends. It depends on what you are developing. If it is a peripheral component interacts with Kubernetes very closely. Sorry, then let me put it this way. Maybe people are aware of the operator concept today, right? Now, when I'm developing an operator using a language other than Go, I will need to interact with the Kubernetes API.
And there's 1,000,001 use cases in which you would not be using Go. There's all sorts of reasons you wouldn't be using Go. Like if you're interfacing with an old system.
Right.
Okay, so I don't love keeping this, but it sounds like there's a sufficient use case to keep it. I do not want to get in the habit of relitigating the KEP about third-party content every time something comes up like this. I also don't want to get into the habit of maintaining outdated content and having people open issues against outdated content. I also don't want to be in the habit of constantly dealing with vendors trying to one-up each other by adding themselves to this list and deleting each other. So the solution that I'm willing to accept on this is to slap a third-party content warning on it and say, use at your own peril. But yeah, I accept
I think that's
this
the best we can
is,
do.
Okay, Qiming, is this agreeable to you?
Yeah, we can move it to, move it to, say, a reference section and put a large warning there. This content is not actively maintained.
Yeah. And I think we have to accept that level of ambiguity as we've discovered. And I think Tim mentioned in another issue around this that it might be time to PR against our own KEP and update the KEP itself and say, like, these are, as we discover.
That's a separate issue.
Okay, done. How about this? I'm going to leave a comment on Tim's piece of feedback saying at this meeting, we decided that this was the solution for this.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Celeste. I appreciate that.
So as far as the open PR, I think that was also in question from your comment, Zach. Are we closing that, merging that? It sounds like we have general consensus on that form or that area. Are we creating the warning label, then letting it sit as is, or are we allowing folks to contribute more or new content?
This is why I don't want this content to live here. I would say that is a separate discussion. The way that we're going to get through this is to hyper focus on the context of this PR itself. So this PR in particular needs to rebase. Yeah, I don't want us to spend time reviewing and vetting and maintaining this content. So God, there's really no happy way forward here where we keep this. And if we remove it, people will also howl. If we rebase this, if Taylor implements the feedback from Tim and the very specific feedback about where this should live and that it should have a warning label on it, can we merge this PR? I'm sorry to be a pain about this, but I gave 5 months of my life to this fight, and I don't want to keep having this fight every time that we deal with third-party content, which doesn't make me necessarily the most unbiased arbiter on this decision. So I guess what I want to do here is make sure that we scope the discussion to this particular PR and say, is this mergeable if these conditions are met? So I guess like quick up or down. If the specific feedback is met, can we move? All right, that looks clear. So let's do that, and let's move on to the next PR. Okay, so better CKA experience, 22973. Jim, I wonder if you can maybe recommend a way forward here, because this contributor opened a PR that looks like specifically to be helpful to people taking the CKA exam. And given our experience given what Tim shared about his own experience with the CKA exam, I suspect this particular contributor would be happy just having this PR in here, whether it's open or closed, because it makes it searchable and anyone can find this result. So, but I wonder, Jim, if you can like recommend more about how to proceed.
Yeah, this is definitely a hairy issue for general context for folks keeping up with some of the different pieces going on here. Neolit or Lubomir from the SIG multi-cluster lifecycle, or more importantly, KubeADM from SIG multi-cluster lifecycle, ended up creating a PR, removing some of the CNI install instructions. The reason being was that there was, I think, 3 examples. I believe it was Cilium, Calico, and maybe Flannel was the other one. And what happened was everybody was coming in and saying, add my CNI to this list as well. And it's really not KubeADM's position to say this is one winner of the CNIs. Here's the loser CNIs. It's really just saying in the Kubernetes community, you can choose your own CNI. You can run with whatever CNI you want. Here's a link to that, and it'd be an external link to a plethora of container networking interfaces. The challenge is the CKA exam explicitly allows you to use Kubernetes documentation and not external links. So anybody who is leveraging that documentation for configuring a cluster or anything of that nature couldn't actually click on those links to get the install instructions for the CNIs, which are now hosted externally. So the PR was in an effort to just kind of not play favorites, which I think was in the right, spirit, as well as in line with the KEP that we've been talking about third-party content. So I think the PR overall was a net positive, but now there's that issue of how do you resolve it from an exam taker's perspective, eliminating this content, moving it to an outside resource, which is not accessible by anybody here. So as far as a way forward, I don't have a great recommendation. My gut would say potentially just have Calico be the default, the de facto networking and the CNI there. The reason I say that is I know that there's a lot of infrastructure and testing that is done through Kubernetes and CI Signal as well, and a lot of those clusters are running either kind or clusters that are running Calico CNI. It seems like a lot of, I guess, people who are getting started with Kubernetes start with Calico as kind of the de facto standard, maybe Canal, which is Calico and Flannel mixed together. It's kind of a hard spot to be, but instead of saying we're picking favorites, it's just going down to a single provider that is one of the more popular ones. That's been one of the most, I would say, I don't want to say most maintained, but one of the longest, battle tested CNIs that have been out there. I haven't looked at Kranz's PR, what actually was being implemented. When I was scrolling through there, it looked like there was some Flannel components as well. So yeah, like Cilium also got added back. So it looks like what he ultimately did was add all of the CNIs back to the original page here under cluster administration and networking.
In 22.973, it also looks like he added some quick install instructions. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think this PR would need work before it would be mergeable.
And the one good thing about the PR with the quick install instructions is it does keep in the spirit of having many CNIs. It's not just saying here's the one, but you're going to have the separate problem, except for it won't be kubeadm's problem. It will be networking's problem on this page, where everybody who has a CNI will want to be represented on this page, which maybe that's a bridge or a means to the end, I guess, of solving this problem. I'm not too sure.
Okay. I also don't like.
I have a question.
Yeah, Ray.
Yeah. So I know there's a CK version 2 coming out in September 1st or sometime in September, which does still include bootstrapping and installing a K8s cluster. So they would have to still add CNI. I remember someone mentioning that they're going to talk with the CK, the people in charge of the CK, to have the one-liner possibly included in the prompts. I have taken CK and CCAD, and sometimes they do provide something that needs, in terms of like commands or orgs, they will provide you what's needed. Would that be a possibility?
I think it absolutely would. So funny enough, Jim and I had a conversation with the CNCF folks who maintain the CKA and CKAD exams last week. And their ask of us was to go through and revise the content this week. So I am waiting on access to the test material in order to be able to revise it, but that is a really solid suggestion. I think, Jim, I seem to recall you making basically the same suggestion.
Yeah, that was one of my suggestions early on, is saying that, no one's picking a CNI winner or loser. It's just the CKA exam saying, here's the instructions needed to install Calico, for example. The rest of the exam would still be, the administration portion of Kubernetes, but having it just be listed there as the apply or the YAML there, so they don't need to actually go out to a resource, would absolutely be a solution, which I recommended, and then I'm not sure if it was implemented, but potentially after reviewing the test content, we could make the recommendation again with more clear, actionable steps.
Okay. That seems to me like a much better way forward than returning to a place where we're vetting content from third-party providers. Any other thoughts or input there?
Given that the new exam launches in September, does it make sense to table this until we can see the new exam? I know you don't like that, but we don't have enough information, do we?
No, that's real. Yeah, this can keep for like another week or two, I think. I mean, people are still passing the CKA. So, yeah, let's Let's table this for 2 weeks, and hopefully by then we will have access to test material and can make specific recommendations about how to improve that. Okay, let's move on. Let's see, 23083 for moving the search page. This seems really straightforward to me, but I don't want to approve this in a vacuum. It's basically making our site search page play nicely with Doxy and Hugo.
And I think a part of Karen's impetus in this is wanting to include blog posts in the search, right?
I think so. And also to make it clear that the search results page has like the banner for it says specifically search results and not documentation, so that it's not misleading in that sense. It's a clearer user experience about what exactly someone's looking at, and that alone seems like a worthwhile reason to
yeah,
merge the PR.
I really like that the I need to test this a bit more, but I agree it seems reasonably straightforward. So how about this? If you're cool with it, you can give the looks good, and then I will go through and assign myself and do like a thorough, give this like a thorough poke to make sure that we aren't gonna do anything terrible.
Let's see. Pinging. I will ping you for the approve on this one.
Yep.
Hey, cool. Thank you. So submodule updates. Jim, I saw your PR 23434 to make sure that we are pulling in the latest security update from the Doxy theme. I tested the deploy, but apart from just running your commands locally and everything looking good to me, I don't know how, like what else we would do to test this.
That's pretty much the exact boat that I was in. It deployed, I was like, hey, it worked. And I noticed that the actual commit hashes were changed on the submodule. This is the first time I've ever updated a submodule to pull it into the main remote. So I thought that was pretty cool from just a general learning experience. But yeah, I think kicking the tires on this and then obviously wait for the release to settle down and maybe we merge it.
It sounds good. The only question I had was looks like GitHub is not liking this particular commit hash. It is, if you look at the particular status for, what is it, 4BB6047, this commit does not belong to any branch on this repository. And whether that's GitHub temporarily like losing its mind or something in particular.
So I think, and please, if there's someone who knows more about Git, to tell me where I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that's as designed. If you were to go into a Kubernetes website with pulling the submodule update, if you then change directories into that submodule and do like a git status, you're going to see a detached head based on a commit hash.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's detached in nature, and that's why it's kind of funky to update. And I ran into some walls where I would actually update it, and it didn't appear to be updated, and that's why I was happy when this appeared to work.
Yeah, that's Git submodule is the worst Git mini game. Yeah, but I suspect you're right. I think this is exactly that detached head behavior that happens when you update a submodule.
So the other question too that is worth bringing up to the group is, So this is the security update that I referenced was something about clickjacking and some way that the default template was set up to allow certain activities, which is not really a best practice or recommendation from a security perspective. When we roll over master to the previous 118 branch, I believe that release branch is still going to have the submodule version that is older, maybe with these vulnerabilities in it. And with this Doxy theme, do we need to then recursively go to all of our previous releases that leverage this and update those?
So can somebody, I'm unfamiliar with basically what happens when we roll a release for documentation. So when that old version is created, what has happened? And the question I ask this is because this is a static site generator. Ergo, should we not just be pulling static files, which are not necessarily subject to the same security vulnerabilities by nature of being static?
So here is how this works. Oh, wait, sorry, I was going to go down one path. If I understand this correctly, I think that we have to manually update the branch with a submodule. When a submodule rolls like this, I think that we have to manually update the branch to pull that update in. Because it will build correctly, but the changes won't live in the repository. They'll only live in the deployment, if that makes sense. So the way, if you look at the make file and the actual build command, the build command pulls the submodule. It was a git submodule update, recursive update depth 1 means the build environment will always have those changes, but the repository itself won't have those changes. So there will be a difference between what lives in the repository versus what lives in the deployment if we don't pull those changes into the repository. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. Yes. Okay.
So one good thing here I just realized is 117, the previous release that we would be, I guess we'd have to backport this to if we were to merge it after the release for the new 119 main branch. So sorry, let me unwind that a little bit. So like right now, the main branch is 118. So it's the only theme that we have, or the only branch that we have that's using the Doxy theme. So it's the only branch that's using submodules in this case. So when the release comes out tomorrow, 118 then moves to this release 118 branch, kind of a snapshot state in time. Now the Doxy theme exists in the main branch as well as the now kind of older 118 branch as well.
Oh, so I think I understand. So sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Basically, every time we release a new version, we create a branch for the old version and we deploy from that branch. Okay, so we're not taking like an actual snapshot. We're creating a long loop branch.
Exactly.
We're creating a forever branch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So yeah, we won't have this issue this time, but we will have it once 118 is on release 118 if this merges after the release, which it most likely will given the current state. But then as we move forward and 120 comes out and we have 118 and 119, et cetera, we will have to keep in mind submodule updates need to go throughout the different previous releases. And Celeste, to answer your question, I know you're thinking a lot about this release process and some of the static files, and I completely agree. I've had this thought as well. And Netlify supports this kind of mono repo thing where there's multiple pieces of a repo all sharing different smaller modules of a repo. I haven't been able to wrap my head around it in a functional sense that is worthy of completely, etch-a-sketching this entire process that has been kind of crafted over the previous releases. But if there's another way where instead of going with a branch-based model, another model that's maintainable, supportable from a release team, from a SIG Docs team, I think it's worthy of at least discussing. Not saying that there has been a solution or is a solution there.
I think this will be a one-off situation in that just because of the timing of merging this particular PR, because the branch, the repo is frozen, So the repo will thaw, this PR will merge, and we'll have to make the change retroactively, even though technically it's concurrent during the 1.18 release. Yeah, I think it's just the timing that makes this particular release weird. And yes, there's probably a way to mono repo, but that's like a whole separate conversation, and it's like quarterly planning conversation. So yeah, but I agree. Let's always keep an eye out for a better way to do things. The way that we're doing things is the result of many iterations of experiment, and just because it works doesn't mean it's necessarily the best. Okay, I think that's what we have on the agenda for PRs. Any other particular thorny PRs to discuss? We've got like 20 minutes left, so I think we got some. No, all good. Okay, let's move on. So one thing I wanted to make folks aware of is on the 14th of September. Well, okay, so the CNCF, we are hosting 4 technical writers for Google's Season of Docs. That's a program that Google runs to introduce technical writers to open source contribution. And there are 3 writers are on other CNCF projects. But one writer is dedicated specifically to improving the way that we serve generated API references. And it is Philippe Martin, who is a longstanding contributor already for the French localization and also in SIG API machinery. So basically, what Philippe is going to do over 3 months, beginning on September 14th, is take advantage of Doxy's built-in functionality to serve nicely rendered generated APIs in a way that isn't just the cumbersome way that we generate and serve APIs references now. I'm trying to, is there a way to make this short? So the Kubernetes API, collection of APIs is all defined in an open API script. And Philippe is going to, or a spec, sorry. And Philippe is going to figure out a way to import those specs whenever they update and they live in the Kubernetes repo. Whenever they update, Philippe is going to find a way to make sure that that is automatically ports to the website repo and that the website repo rebuilds. So rather than only generating API references once a quarter, during the release process, the goal is to make it a continuous delivery and to also make the output pretty and more browsable. So that is a thing that's happening. It's awesome. This has been my end game for like 3 years, is better API documentation, a better API reference experience. So you may see some PRs. Feel free to review and add and comment. Another thing, we have a Persian language localization in progress. Looks like they're getting close. I just wanted to boost that as an awesome thing that's happening. We're actually getting to play with some new Hugo functionality that renders languages from right to left. And so it's cool that Hugo has that built in. Style guide additions. In the course of reviewing PRs over the past 2 weeks, there are 2 things that I see repeatedly that are like sand in an oyster, but it's going to be an ugly pearl. One is avoid colloquial language. So things like using software out of the box. Who opens a box to get software anymore? When was the last time you literally opened a box to get software? For me, it was like 1997. It just doesn't make sense anymore. So that's a colloquialism, even though it's common, even though a fairly large subset of people know what that means. There's a fair number of people who don't. And how do you localize that? So I would like to update our style guide to specifically warn against colloquial language. And I'm haunted by the idea that we probably already have that in the style guide. We're just not applying it enough. And the other one is to, so there's a best practice for documentation, and it's whenever you use an acronym on a page or an abbreviation, define it on first use. So if I were to say CNI, I would say Container Network Interface, open parenthesis, CNI, close parenthesis. So you say the full term first and then give the abbreviation for it, and then you can use the abbreviation thereafter. These feel fairly non-controversial, but I am curious and happy for input and reflection on this.
Say do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, these are pretty standard. One thing I was gonna mention to the people on this call is Divya, one of the release shadows on 119, reached
Celeste,
out.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Are you going to go into a different point?
Yes. Okay. Leave me. Nope.
All right,
nope.
then let's
don't
add that to the
mad
end of the
about it.
agenda. All right, so Celeste, editing with Divya. Okay, we will get to you. I just want to make sure we, yeah. Ximin, go ahead.
Yeah, so speaking of style guide, do we have any guidance or instructions on using the short codes such as tooltip, glossary things? I'm seeing these kind of short codes floating everywhere. When we are localizing these short codes, we comment a paragraph out, but the short code still works. It's kind of annoying, but do we have any guidance on how and where to use them?
We do. They are in the contribution guide. We have sections specifically for Hugo shortcodes. I don't think that they're in an obvious place. So I think it's probably, there's an opportunity there to reorganize that content and make it more visible. But yes, we do have style guide, or maybe it's not in the style guide, but we do have in the contributing section, there is guidance about how to apply and how to use shortcodes that are like general to Hugo and also specific to the website repo.
Okay, I'll double check. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Jim, I noticed you have a note about localization analytics and improvements.
Yeah, and just a quick comment about the custom Hugo shortcodes. I think I found the page that you're referencing. I'll throw it in chat there. It might be worthwhile to update how to localize some of these shortcodes in addition to just general use for the different localizations. Because, and Ximin, correct me if I'm wrong, but the question is that these shortcodes are still going to be in English once they were translated, because they're pulling from different shortcodes. They could be in different files and referenced in different places, correct?
The problem is the syntax. When we are using short codes, we adding some braces. When we are localizing the English text, we comment a whole paragraph using HTML comment, but the comment of the short code still works. That breaks the translation.
Interesting.
Okay,
So
that
I
might be a
wonder
different
if,
issue.
yeah, that sounds like a Hugo specific issue where where maybe like the short code is overriding the commenting inside of the block.
Yeah, the short code still works if it is an HTML comment. If it can be completed comment out if it's inside a Markdown comment or Hugo comment.
I think this might be a issue with the moving from Black Friday to Goldmark, and I believe that Goldmark doesn't render HTML on the page itself. But if we had a shortcode that allowed you to comment out the entire section, would probably solve this. I believe I'd have to to see about what this would look like to implement. But when you have HTML on the page, and I forget what exactly happens, they render basically they render the short codes before they render the content on page, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing here as well.
Yeah, that good call, Jim. That sounds right. I'm impressed you remember that.
It was a very painful time in my life. Cool. And yeah, for the localization and analytics improvements, just a real quick update. I sent out some localization PDFs, and I got a lot of great feedback. And I'm trying to implement a better dashboard to share with the wider localization teams. So I just wanted to let folks know that I haven't forgot about that. That it's still in progress. I'm planning on evaluating all the feedback, creating better dashboards, and then potentially adding some sort of either additional mailing list or the existing mailing list to send those out, and folks could filter them if they don't want them. I think there's a lot more value in the localization teams getting it, and if it annoys people, they can create filters to avoid them. And then the last piece here is I don't believe that we do a lot with the, is this page helpful? Yes or no at the very bottom. As far as the analytics there. And I figured out recently how to make some sense of it or actually see it in Google Analytics. So I think not only from a localization standpoint, but from the English, documentation, it'd be good to leverage the "is this helpful or not" piece there. And from what I was looking, there's not a lot of people who use it over the course of a month. I would say our most the page with the highest amount of feedback given to is around 30 or so clicks on that. Is this important or is this helpful? Yes or no. But nevertheless, it's feedback. It's there. I don't think we leverage it. I just figured out how to today. So more to come.
Okay. One quick thought there. There's a really valuable piece of documentation wisdom. Only measure things you're prepared to act upon. So if we're not acting on the "was this page helpful," then I would say let's remove it. So Jim, if you can find a clear way forward to implement, to measure and act on this feedback, then let's keep it. But if it's only getting like 30 clicks a month, then I would say also let's consider removing it. I don't want it to turn into a time sink if it's something that a tiny percentage of our monthly website traffic sees.
Well, yeah, and I'll take a look at it. The one piece that might be more beneficial for localization teams is there's not a ton of negative feedback, but there are a lot of no positive feedback on certain localization documents. And I don't know whether that's they just aren't localized and maybe someone's not happy they're not localized, but you see an actual cycle there might help localization teams. But once again, I completely agree. If we're not ready to act on it, let's take a look at it, maybe share it with the team, and talk about it in a meeting, and then we can kill it or kill it or boost it.
So if only 30 people are clicking a month, we have 2 million site visits, page views per month, 200,000, 20,000, 2,000, 200, 20, that's 0.00015% of our web traffic. So I guess consider that advisedly.
The only thing that would be interesting with that button is if there were pages with overwhelmingly bad feedback, because while it's an infinitesimally small amount of our web traffic, I would be very interested to see if there was anything that was overwhelmingly bad.
If like all 30 clicks were on one page, like, yeah.
Oh, are we talking 30 clicks total or like 30 clicks on average per page?
There's roughly 600,000 clicks, but when you break it out by page, I'd say on average 30 clicks a page.
See, this is different.
Okay, that's
this is
much
different. Okay,
Yeah.
see, here's what and then that to me is still relevant, because if you were so angry at a page that you were motivated to click the button at the end, thinking it might do something, like.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was looking. So it's kind of strange the way Hugo and Doxy work, and I didn't know any of this stuff until digging into it a little bit. But there's a yes and a no button, it only registers yeses. And if you click no, it registers it as an event, but then it's a percentage of overall. So if everyone clicks no, you have a 0% success of that page. Whereas if 50% of the people click yes, 50% of the people click no, you see a 50% and you can assume that it's 50% healthy, positive, happy. Where you see the 0% pages, meaning that out of everyone who clicked it, nobody clicked that it was yes, helpful feedback. You see that a lot on localization pages where there's around 12 on average users per page where they said that nothing on this page is helpful. Without looking into the analytics too far or getting too deep into this discovery, it's very possible these are pages that haven't been translated or localized yet. So if I'm a non-English speaker and I see a page that hasn't been translated and I'm on the translated branch, I would very quickly click no, this is not helpful at the very end of that page.
Yeah, no, that's real. Yeah, fair enough. That is actually a really interesting pathway to follow. Like to compare the percentage of happiness on a page versus the journey that brought a user to that page. Yeah, that would be really valuable to a localization. Fair. Anything more to say about that?
Nope. Yeah, really just wanted to emphasize bringing up the localization analytics and then also the new discovery. So more to come.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for following up with that, Jim. Thank you for persisting there. Celeste, editing with Divya.
Yeah, so Divya reached out via DM to ask some questions about how we edit docs and what our standards are for content and for language. And so I offered her a Calendly link to have an informal discussion about how to edit the docs, but this has actually come up a few times from SIG release related people. So I thought I would bring it here. Would anybody here be interested in a workshop on how to edit content for for language and like how to actually improve things that we see from a pure language perspective? Because right now that knowledge lives with Zach and I, and I'll throw probably Tim Bannister in there because he's British. But
it lived with Jennifer Rondeau when she was a chair.
Yeah, and it lived with Jennifer Rondeau as well. But this is also a question that I have received at many points in my career from many different engineers and many different
Sure.
permutations. So if there's broader interest, I'll throw out a doodle to find a time, and I'll teach you a little bit about editing.
Sorry, no, it's my recoiling is specific to Doodle as a functionality, not to the idea of finding a time that's convenient to everyone.
Okay.
So Jeffrey Klein, I know that you are a technical writer by trade. I wonder if this would be of interest to you as well.
Yes, it would.
Cool. I will
Excellent.
throw a doodle in SIG Docs. I'll float it over SIG Releases way. And yeah.
I think this would be great and a strong +1 from my end as well. I'd be happy to attend something like that for sure. And what I was thinking as we brought this up, I wouldn't be opposed, and I'm voluntelling, I guess. So feel free to tell me that you would be opposed, but I wouldn't be opposed to even sharing tips and tricks during the meeting as they come up. Here's content editing that I've done where, here's the problem, here's the outcome, technical editor hour.
Okay.
I just want to have like my Roy Batty background. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. No, that's a really good idea. Yeah, so Celeste, excellent idea. And thank you also for shepherding the project there.
Okay, cool. I'll send out a thing that will determine a time. It may or may not be Doodle. I apologize for the trauma I'm inducing. But we do what we can with the tools that we have, okay?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Ignore me. I'm an old man. Uphill in the snow both ways. Cool. Also, so like Celeste and Jim and I have taken on some projects to do, but the spirit of one of the values of the project is for folks who are new, step up, expect to step up, and expect for us to go away. So if there is something that you are interested in, absolutely jump in. Do not wait for permission. Jump in, throw an elbow on that, get involved. So yeah, Kubernetes is not really a spectator sport. Come on in. Cool, we have 4 minutes left. Anything else that folks want to talk about in the time we have? Well, cool. Thanks, everyone. This is really good. I got really good participation, and thanks for diving in deep on the PRs, and really good discussion. All right, everyone, have an excellent week. Enjoy the release process. May it succeed quietly and be uneventful.
I think now you jinxed it.
Oh my God. Knock on all the wood I can find. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.